And we are live.
Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Rodowsky of WeAreChange.org here, of course, with Jason Burmis on Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern, November 18th, 2018, for, of course, our weekly live Sunday news broadcast, where we go over all the important news that happened from Monday till today that, of course, is usually kept away from you by the U.S. whore stream prostitute media. And of course, we are going to be live for about an hour to 2 hours, maybe even longer. We don't even know. We're also going to be taking phone calls, and we're going to be live on Facebook, on Periscope. The podcast of this episode will be available on iTunes later, but primarily we're going to be talking to all you amazing human beings on YouTube, where, of course, your super chats are going to be the priority, since they, Jason, keep us fully free and independent, unlike all the other bipartisan hacks out there who say that they're doing media, but really they're just doing propaganda. So, yeah, Jason, how are you?
I am well, Luke. How was your week? I know you've been a travel star. You were over at Polish Independence at the end of last week, spent some time with the family, but then you made your way over to the UK talking to George Galloway, ex-parliament member, radio host, television host. Really been busy. What have we missed, Mr. Rodowsky?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just exhausted. I literally just flew in from London, England, and it's, what is it? I think it's like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning there right now. So I'm a little jet lagged. I'm a little out of it. I'm a little tired. It was, what was it, a 10-hour flight with the connections and all that. But regardless, London's a crap hole. It's a big prison there. I did not enjoy that place. The weather's crap. You go there, everything's gray. There's police officers walking around with big M16s, not M16s, but big machine guns. A really divided place. London's not my favorite place, to say the least, but a lot of good people, a lot of friends there. So it was good to go back for the few days and of course, be here for the Sunday show, which was the primary reason to going back to my crap hole, which, of course, is Brooklyn, New York. So been very busy, been working, networking, strategizing. As you guys see, we're not hacks of the left or hacks on the right. There's people like George Galloway, who obviously are leaning more towards leftist ideologies, and people like Ron Paul, who obviously are more conservative and lean more towards the right, that we work with and cooperate with and do interviews with and collaborations with and strategize with. Because, again, the truth is not on either left or right. It's against the establishment. And really just the two big distinctions, Jason, that I think should be made that are not being made in our political discourse are the people who believe in authoritarianism and then the people who believe in freedom. I, of course, like to minimize this argument into whether you believe in government or not. But that's not even the argument here, Jason. It's, do you believe in more government or do you believe in less government? And, of course, Jason, we have our little disagreements because you, I believe, agree for less government. And I myself believe in no government at all. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't believe in no government, Luke. I am a limited government guy. I'm a checks and balances guy. I'm a constitution
Just a little
guy.
bit, a little bit tyranny, a little bit of control.
I'm not not promoting tyranny. Some people are saying that your mic is still a little bit hot, Luke. It's not the volume, but maybe you can just lower it a little or maybe back off it a bit. Anyway.
Okay, let me know. Let me know if this is better. Check mic. Well, let's also try to take a phone call, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Is this better or is this worse?
No, that is better, at least to me. But we'll see. We'll see in the comment section.
Moving it, I don't know which direction I'm even moving.
Right there is good. I'm not getting
okay.
Like basically
right.
what was happening is you were just nickeling it. Someone said you sound like you had nickels in your throat, and that was a good description. A little scratchy every once in a while.
Chris Karabats says worse.
Worse.
He's one of our members.
Yes,
but,
thank you, Chris, by the way.
Some people are saying better, but we're going to keep messing around with this thing. People are saying good now. It's getting hotter. Stop twisting things. Better. No, not better. Okay, interesting comment section. We're going to get to you guys in a second, but we're also going to be talking to you one-on-one through the power of the phone, which I'm really excited about. But I caught you off, Jason. Go ahead.
I was just saying that, look, Luke, I'm a realist. I'm a small government guy. I think you need some live PD in your life. I really do. I think what you see, yeah, we've talked about it before. I
haven't seen that show.
Yeah,
I don't
you need to watch it, dude.
Propaganda programming. Maybe that's why my viewpoints are different than yours.
Yeah. Well, I've also lived live PD. I've never been on the program, but I've seen plenty of situations just like that one, and I know in my heart of hearts, unfortunately, some people just do not have self-control. Some people are not responsible. And
yeah, they're called government officials, Jason.
I'm certainly not giving them a pass, Luke. But it wasn't a government official I watched this week drag his girlfriend down a hallway while he had a gun and officers pursued him while she screamed for her life and begged the officers to help her. I'm just saying, no government officials there other than the police tried to save the woman being dragged down a hallway with an armed madman. Just my
most
opinion.
likely the bigger societal problems that have led to that situation were most likely caused by government, but that's a whole different argument that I don't want to get into. But we could talk about that, a whole bunch of different stuff. People want to talk about the creepy porn lawyer in the comment sections. We, of course, have a lot of stories to get into. But Jason, let's give out that phone number. Let's take out let's take one phone call before we start getting into all the top news that happened this week.
You got it. It is 607- 542-9184. Now, I have a warning for you guys. We were testing this out for about a half an hour beforehand. And for some reason, Luke can hear when it rings. But then as soon as I take the call, and I don't know whether this is software related, we're about to.
We got a phone call.
There we do. So I'm going to have to repeat the question.
I may hear the question, I may not, but we'll just go from there and ad-lib it.
You are live with WeAreChange. What would you like to talk about?
Oh, I didn't believe this shit would happen, man. What up, y'all?
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm calling you from Denmark.
Okay, from Denmark. Cool. Now, remember, Luke can't hear you, so whatever you're asking, let me know, and I'm going to put it out to both of us. So go ahead. What's your name, brother? Okay.
Yeah, my name is Gasman.
All right, Gasman, what would you like to talk about?
Well, actually, me and my friend were just sitting and talking about the situation in Syria, for being honest.
So we're talking Syria. You know what? Has not been in the news recently. Obviously, we have been covering it week after week after week. But the last real big news that we saw in Syria was ISIS taking over that last town, having 700 different hostages. And Putin said, this is now 3, maybe even 4 weeks ago, that they were executing 10 a day. European and American nationals there. Now, anybody that's watching this program knows that this is an intelligence op. Timber Sycamore was the original CIA infiltration plan into Syria. It was never, ever, ever about defeating ISIS, Luke, and it was always, always about regime change and taking out Assad.
Yeah, and bigger geopolitical.
Yeah, that figures. There was actually also our own,
more favorable petrodollar. But also the situation of what's happening in Syria will not end anytime soon. And the bigger, further balkanization plans of divide and conquer and cutting that country up is still being pushed forward. And it looks like the end is nowhere in sight because the United States is still keeping its troops there. It's still investing into that country. It's still hoping for a regime change. And it's still there to back up their ally Israel to make sure that, of course, the Syrian-Iranian forces don't get a foothold right on Israel's border, which Israel has been very aggressively fighting off by attacking Syria and the Syrian military while also aiding the rebels, which, of course, are radical Islamic terrorists as well. Thank you for your question. By the way, Jason, I didn't hear any bit of that question, so I just wanted to take one phone call. I like phone calls. I like the whole live interactive thing. Let's take more phone calls after we go after the news. We also got a super chat that I think is that we should go over, and this is by Soul A, and she says, hello to both of you. Luke, so glad you're back. What would you like for Christmas, Luke? Question mark. Jason, what would you like for Christmas? Let me think about this one.
What would I like for Christmas? I don't know, man. I don't really think about that stuff.
Government?
I mean, I'd like some realism.
A rational belief of self-responsibility.
Well, my fam is skipping town. The girls and my sister, they're going to Virginia for Thanksgiving. So I'll probably be spending that alone. I think I'm going to be bartending the night before that. And then I don't know about Christmas, dude. I mean, honestly, the last couple of years with the girls here have been just awesome. Because
but if you could give Santa Claus a request, what would it be? What would it be? What would you want?
What would I want? I mean, does it actually happen? I would love
whatever.
some.
You got Santa Claus sitting across from you. You're sitting, Jason. Imagine you're sitting on Santa's lap. Santa's like,
The real deal. The real deal, Santa. Well, if I'm sitting on a grown man in a red outfit that's above 60s lap.
Just like people who believe in Santa, who also believe in the good faith of government, those two things are correlated together. Go ahead. Talk to Santa, Jason.
I would like a WikiLeaks type dump of all the information that any branch of the government has on 9/11. That would be a Christmas for me. That would be the most incredible present ever. Or how about this? How about a president that released all the JFK documents? That'd be nice too. That'd be a nice little stocking stuffer. Both of those things would be great, Luke. That's what I'd like for Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to get some socks or some like weighted blankets or some other health stuff, but I would really want the truth to not be censored. I would really love the opportunity to be able to work in a free market of ideas and be able to have a news organization that is not suppressed because it goes over the interests of government. That's if I had one wish for Christmas, it would be to end all the censorship that's happening to independent media, and that has severely hit us in so many different ways. But thank you so much, Soul A, for the super chat. Really appreciate that. We're going to take phone calls in a little bit. But now, Jason, let's go to the first story that we want to talk about. And that story, of course, is about... Let's play that video.
WikiLeaks. 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 That came out on WikiLeaks. 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 Boy, I love reading those WikiLeaks. 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 WikiLeaks, right? WikiLeaks. 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 WikiLeaks.
And apparently Donald Trump loved the WikiLeaks.
Yeah, Trump's favorite whistleblower organization that he is now going after. And by the way, that video keeps going on for a lot longer as we are finding out that now there are secret indictments, which we have been telling you about, against Julian Assange of WikiLeaks. Now, as we know, Donald Trump, when he was campaigning to be president of the United States, especially in 2016, was tweeting, was talking, was boasting about the great efforts of WikiLeaks, allowing there to be transparency within our own government. Now, that tone has definitely changed 180 degrees and has become a very troubling one, with even Eric Trump just 2 days ago being on Fox and Friends saying that, well, what's one death of a journalist have to do with us ruining our relationship with Saudi Arabia? Really showing you the testament, the kind of mentality that is coming from Trump's White House. Meanwhile, on the other hand, the legacy mainstream media is just being as asinine and as a total lack of principles, have been making a big case about Jim Acosta this week, which, of course, is a CNN news reporter who is at the White House, who's arguing that he has a First Amendment right to be at the White House. This is after, of course, he grabbed onto the microphone and decided not to relinquish it, becoming more of a kind of activist entertainment, which the mainstream legacy media rallied behind. Meanwhile, we find out that Julian Assange, the man who revealed one of the biggest CIA leaks in history, the man who is banned from even having speech, banned from sunlight, banned from medical care and family, violation of human rights under 2 UN rulings, him? No. We're just going to report on what's happening to him and not fight for him like the mainstream media has been fighting for Jim Acosta, which shows you the direct parallels that need to be highlighted here about this very important story that is happening, since the Washington Post this week confirmed that the Department of Justice has filed secret charges against Julian Assange. And we found out about this because of supposed accidental reveal by prosecutors from a copy and paste error. Now, this story and this aspect of this story is important to critically think about, because this copy and paste error by this prosecutor was done twice. with documents that are usually ironclad and have many people look over them. And to me, if you look at the bigger story here, this really wasn't an accident. This was done on purpose, and many people could speculate why, but it's clear to me that this was not just something that happened, that the United States government, that this prosecutor, that the people behind this weren't aware of. It's very unlikely that this is the scenario behind this bigger case, which, by the way, if you've been watching this YouTube channel, months ago, we've been telling you that, yes, there are secret sealed indictments against Julian Assange. You could go back on our broadcast. You could go back on our Sunday live shows. You could go back every time we talked about Julian Assange. We always brought up the fact that there were secret indictments against him. And guess what? Now, Washington Post is reporting on it. Now it's very clear. And Julian Assange has already been detained for now over nearly 6 years and has been punished for releasing and publishing information. And there has been a lot of disinformation because of him being a publisher of documents that are critical of the power establishment. And even right now, we are seeing propaganda out there that, along with this secret indictment, that there's some kind of correlation that Julian Assange was, quote, acting in the direction of Russia, which there's absolutely no evidence of. There's a lot of disinformation that happened around Julian Assange even years ago when everyone was calling him a rapist, even though those charges were completely dropped against him. And the disinformation campaign continues with, of course, the rallying to save the First Amendment for Jim Acosta being an activist entertainer, but totally disregarding the very important ramifications of this case with Julian Assange, who looks like he will be charged under the Espionage Act, which again could be used against anyone, including mainstream media reporters. And this is happening because Trump's Secretary of State, the former CIA director, Mike Pompeo, was the person who launched this investigation into Assange shortly after taking the job of course, Secretary of State, which Donald Trump appointed him to. And with former Attorney General Jeff Sessions, they were the ones who reconsidered the decisions by Barack Obama not to go after WikiLeaks and decided to aggressively probe Assange and his alleged ties to the Russian government. And if you really look at the situation, there's no hiding it that this is all squarely on Donald Trump, the big promoter and supporter of WikiLeaks when he was running to be president, and now the persecutor of them. And it's not only just the Trump administration's 180-degree flip-flop on this issue going after WikiLeaks within Trump's administration, but it's also the liberals, the Democrats, who are actually supporting Trump's administration trying to destroy WikiLeaks because, again, they're just hypocritical, non-virtuous people who are still mad at Julian Assange and WikiLeaks because of the documents that he released against the DNC, exposing the corruption of course, the highest levels of the Democratic establishment, including Hillary Clinton. And this is why he is being put as a target for exposing the DNC establishment and also U.S. war crimes that were committed in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and also by the intelligence agency, the CIA. Now, the bigger question that we have to be left with here is, what charges is he being charged with? And of course, that is still not known. No one really knows what he's going to be charged for. But ultimately, if you look at the situation and you back up and you look at this from a bigger perspective, ultimately what WikiLeaks and Julian Assange represents is a reporter, is a publisher. It's an organization that releases information that they were given. Ultimately being journalists, ultimately doing what major media companies used to do and publish documents and publish secrets that the government never wanted you to know. That's what journalism was. That's what Watergate was. That's what muckraking was. And if the White House, if Donald Trump and his administration is successful in bringing him down for publishing, this will have large ramifications with, of course, other reporters, other mainstream media companies. And also, if you look at it, should also have something to do with going after Hillary Clinton for mishandling classified information, since this is the overall trend that the United States government is trying to go after Julian Assange. So even Obama's Department of Justice concluded that persecuting Julian Assange is a grave threat for press freedom. Even the New York Times was able to admit that. One of the few organizations who are actually putting things together, putting a correlation to them, and saying the prosecution of Julian Assange would be a very, very bad precedent for publishers, since essentially what Julian Assange does and has been doing is what the New York Times did before, is what the Washington Post does before. You look at a lot of the news articles that are published, especially against Donald Trump, they're coming from inside sources. They're coming from people within the White House leaking information to the press. And that could be made criminal. So the only people really standing up for Julian Assange right now are a very, very few Trump supporters, press freedom organizations, the New York Times, Pamela Anderson, who even just now accused the Australian Prime Minister of being smutty, saying that he needs strength and conviction to actually take care of his fellow citizen, Julian Assange, and help bring him home, which, of course, he's not doing. Rand Paul has also made a stand in the ground calling for immunity for Julian Assange in exchange for testimony regarding the works of WikiLeaks. And it's pretty much clear that that is the common sense thing to do, since any conviction has grave implications for the future of freedom of speech and the freedom of press. Of course, Julian Assange's lawyers are going to be fighting the charges very closely, and a lot of people are drawing a red line saying, if Trump does this, this is no way that I will ever support him in 2020. Even a lot of a small but significant number of the people who supported him initially. But if you look at the story overall, it pretty much shows us how the empire is proving everything right about Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. And it's an absolutely terrifying discovery and notification to know that soon this man may be not just rotting in an Ecuadorian embassy, but in a U.S. jail for doing the job that needs to be done to hold government accountable. And that's a scary ramification that everyone should care about, and not just the few media outlets, not just the few politicians, not just the few Trump supporters, but everyone, since the implications are far greater here than just those individuals who are fighting for Julian Assange right now. And that's why we are fighting for him as well. So yeah, Jason, that's my take on it. What's yours?
I'd say it's pretty damn similar. The hypocrisy of the mainstream media, Luke, trying to tell us all that this Khashoggi thing we should be not dealing with Saudi Arabia. And by the way, that Eric Trump thing was like days after. That was like last week. Someone must have just posted it this week. But with the Khashoggi thing, Trump has now said he has audio of his death, but is not going to listen to it. But he doesn't believe the CIA either, who are now saying that not only was he murdered there, but it was the prince who ordered it. I've read some crazy, crazy speculation about that Khashoggi thing, where people are now saying that John Bolton may have said it was okay to kill him, basically in a sparring match between Israeli and United States interests in Saudi Arabia. And they do make up quite the triad in the Middle East as a military superpower. That's something that we're uncomfortable talking about. We could talk about Khashoggi. We could talk about Jim Acosta, who is the most ingenuous person I have ever seen and literally gives the flair of the WWE to the White House press room. Now, Trump has said, I think this was just yesterday, that he is going to change the rules and not allow cameras to be put on the reporters as they ask questions so they can't grandstand for attention. I got mixed feelings about that, Luke. You know, freedom of speech is freedom of speech. I understand what a lot of these reporters are doing. Jim Acosta doesn't give a damn about anything but himself. He cares about his career. He cares about having more money, more notoriety. He's not doing these things because he cares about the American people. If he cared about the American people, he'd be going after the president for trying to indict Assange. And, one last thing, Luke. I want to get your take on this. Don't you think it's very odd that WikiLeaks somehow gets this document that has nothing to do with Julian Assange, but everybody keeps calling this thing a copy and paste error? A copy and paste error in another document. Look, we know he's been indicted. We know that Trump is not going to do the right thing and basically give this guy asylum here in the United States and acquit of him any charges because they're all ludicrous. So what do you think? Do you think that this was kind of like done on purpose to ease the public into the idea that Trump is going to prosecute him? Because like you said, a lot of Trump supporters, this will be the last straw, Luke.
Yeah, I mean, just if you look at the U.S. mainstream media and how they cooperate with government, whenever a government wants to make a major move that knows it's going to be controversial, they usually test out the water to see the reaction that they have. That's why before the Iraq war, before the Afghanistan war, before the U.S. intervention in Libya, before all these major conflicts, we have seen a ramping up of propaganda beforehand, testing the ideas, testing the waters. We see politicians do the same things with them testing if they should run for political office. So they're testing the waters with these kind of releases. There's no way that this was an accident. There's absolutely no way. This accident supposedly happened twice. These are documents that get vetted a number of times. There's a number of scenarios that we could entertain here, but there's no factual evidence backing, which you guys need to know, because there's going to be other reporters who are going to be like, this is the truth and this is the fact 100%. No one knows. Being honest with you, no one knows. We just know that it was done on purpose. We can only speculate to why that happened. We're trying to be honest here as much as we can, and it's important to admit when we don't know why this happened. And honestly, I don't know. We could speculate on a whole bunch of different stuff. Do you have some speculations, or what do you think of this whole thing?
It's very tough for me to say. Obviously, we have not heard a ton about the Mueller indictments over the last month and a half. Really, when the Kavanaugh stuff started taking off, that went into the backdrop. We had Jerome Corsi take to his live show. It was either Sunday evening last week or Monday, talking about how he fully expects to be indicted. And this is a man that basically has run a website for the derivative of the internet. It's been around, I believe, since the late 90s, WorldNet Daily. Always taken a conservative angle, although an alternative one. I don't agree with everything Corsi has to say or everything that Corsi has done, not even close. But me and you both know that he is not a millionaire or billionaire business tycoon that has that type of corruption. And anything that they could indict him on would have been slipping him up over, I think he said he was interviewed 6 different times. So to me,
supposedly the interview went over for 40 minutes, and of course he thinks he's going to be indicted on charges of false statements, which means saying something that wasn't true, and he says the FBI was looking into his emails and all this other stuff and held all these documents on him. But again, there's been other people who made similar statements saying, oh, I'm going to be indicted, never have been indicted. We'll see how this one's going to unfold, but it's definitely a very interesting one, and I'm waiting to get more information about this since it's going to put a lot of this together, whether it's just a random witch hunt or if there's actually something legitimate. And again, the overall trend here, Russiagate investigation has been a witch hunt, which we have been calling out since its very inception on this YouTube channel. Again, you got to understand here, we're fully independent. We're looking at all the sources here. We're not taking any sides, but we've been right with the Julian Assange thing, the secret indictment that we called out months ago. We've been right with the whole Russiagate stuff. But again, we still have to see where everything's going to fall. But to me, it still looks like it won't be anything major because, again, we're not talking about direct Russian collusion. We're talking about false statements. You look at all the people that went down in the Mueller investigation, they went down for tax evasion, misdoings with finances, and misstatements. Nothing about Russian collusion. Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing to do with Russia, Luke. You're 100% correct. And my big question with this whole thing is we do know that Mueller has stated... Oh, no. Is my audio out? Oh, there we go. Sorry, my levels.
I hear you.
Yeah, my levels weren't showing up on the mixer. We went over the article last week. Dozens of indictments that Mueller has sealed, right? Well, the question is, how many of these indictments are even in the United States? How many of them are Assange related? There was a story we're not going to go over here, but I posted it over on Facebook, showing who the main FBI informant was to take down Assange, Luke. And this was a kid that had been working with him out of high school. And within, I think, a few months of Assange working with this kid, the FBI approached him. And I think for 2 years, this was the FBI's main source. You can go check that article out over at our Facebook page. But one has to ask, Luke, with this being leaked, with the week before the Observer talking about Mueller having dozens of sealed indictments and the rest of the mainstream media picking that up, do those dozens of indictments include indictments of Assange? Since obviously you don't think so.
I don't think so. Possibly, it could be. I personally don't think so. I mean, according to the Times, these sealed indictments against Assange were there mainly because of Mike Pompeo and Jeff Sessions, and they, of course, are not a part of Robert Mueller's special counsel investigation. They're, of course, a part of Trump's administration and Trump's Department of Justice that is pushing this forward, not Mueller. So there may be even second charges by Mueller against Assange, but I highly doubt it.
So wait a minute, I just want to...
extremely difficult to make that correlation, but they could still do it anyway because they're just putting charges on anyone for whatever little thing that they could get them for.
Well, 6 months ago, it's got to be at least now, when they indicted those 12 members of the GRU, and we went over that indictment. Those people are never going to see trial either. You know what I'm saying? And to me, I don't believe that this is just Trump. I think that the Obama administration also filed charges on him for revealing what was going on at Abu Ghraib and other things and just kept them under seal. So I think we may be seeing a mixture. Now, obviously, the Trump administration would have had the power to subvert those and get rid of those and say, no, we're not going to. And like I said, give him asylum, okay? They didn't do that. They're not doing that. So this is a combo pack. But for I think the biggest lesson to learn here right now is, Luke, Trump is establishment. He's not your friend. He's not about protecting real journalists. And the supposed real journalists in our country aren't about protecting real journalists either. They're about selling you bullshiz on Jim Acosta and Jamal Khashoggi.
Yeah, there's a lot of bullshit around all of those things, and you always have to question when the establishment becomes an activist for a specific cause, what is the true purpose of that specific cause? Because usually establishment, powerful people, especially in the mainstream media, they don't do things for the righteous reasons. They do things because of influence, because of power, because of monetary incentives, which is common sense, which is what they've always been doing, which is why they are who they are in the current position that they're in. So again, interesting. We saw Obama, also go after Chelsea Manning and then pardon Chelsea Manning right before he was going into office. There's a lot of wild cards here. We'll see how they unfold, but this is, to me, a testing of the water. Specifically with how Trump and the White House and the deep state want to proceed with their final clamping down of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. That's my take on it. We're going to be covering the story closely, so just stay tuned for more. Looking at some of the comments, let's answer some of the comments and some of the super chats before we get into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday story, Jason.
Okay.
And I got a couple questions here, just reading from some of our members. You could be a member, a part of our broadcast, and help finance us for about, $4.99. We have a nose. We have a Luke emoji. Do we have a Jason Burmis emoji yet?
I have not put up the Jason Burmis emoji. All right, we'll do it.
Come on. Put on the gosh darn Jason Burmis emoji. I'm seeing emojis with noses, with people saying Luke and a big nose. What a surprise there. That's some original critical thinking. That person must have been top in their class. But let's get the Burmis emoji.
Okay.
People are asking me, what am I drinking? Drinking water with lemon, ginger, mint. What am I vaping? I'm vaping CBD. There's some personal questions for you there, Jason, if you want to go through some of them.
Oh,
we got another super chat here by Chris Primer, who is saying, I was at the secret meeting between Paul Wolfowitz and Xenu. Xenu? This has been in the works for years. Xenu's the South Park character, right? The evil South
Xenu,
Park Cartman.
Yeah, he is in the intergalactic god of space travel.
Scientology god.
I believe he is. But those are space aliens.
Summon Xenu in one of the South Park episodes and control Xenu to destroy hippies at Burning Man.
I don't know that they did that, but I do remember Xenu in one of the episodes. That's why, what's his name before he died, Isaac Hayes, left the show. Because they did a full Scientology episode.
And he was a Scientologist, and he didn't like Scientology.
And then they
People
killed Chef.
Me how much THC is in my CBD thing? Nothing. No THC. I don't like THC. It's just CBD. Sorry, go ahead, Jason.
No, it's, just talking about the ludicrous. Thanks for the super chat, man. I don't happen to believe you because I think that Xenu is fiction. However, who knows? Everything's possible. There are certain things.
What if Chris is a Scientologist, and what if the Scientologists have it right all along? What if they're right?
I don't know about that, Luke, but I do know that I was up.
Anything's possible in this universe. We could be living in a holographic virtual reality controlled by Xenu and L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah, I don't buy into that. But I will, I'm going to spin this into the genius of South Park and how timeless it is. I was up late. I was lying on my couch with my dog. I had Comedy Central on for some reason earlier this week, and an old episode comes on, and it's the Chris Hansen episode. You remember Chris Hansen, right? Man, there were just so many. I mean, that episode's got to be 10, 15 years old right now, and it was still so socio-politically spot on. And I know a lot of you guys watch it this season. I've been watching it too. Those guys made an episode about 9/11 Truth where they made fun of the loose change guys, where we were clue goo guys, and we were basically gay brothers that were constantly getting boners over mysteries. They're funny. They're funny guys. They're politically relevant, and I love me some South Park. I didn't see any questions for me in the chat, but I may have missed some of them. Again, appreciate even the crazy super chats, guys. But if you want to get real and send a real super chat and talk about real issues, we'd like to do that too, right, Luke?
Or even be a member. You could be a member and get emojis of my nose, and soon Jason Burmis's. We should do a grease emoji as well. We got to have a Jason Burmis emoji. We stop doing that.
All right. It'll get uploaded
dragging
tomorrow.
Your feet on that.
Yeah.
For way too long.
Well, it's because I'm not fond of seeing my face in the comment section.
Same here. Same here. I don't like seeing this mug and this nose everywhere. I don't. It's the commitment that we have towards our audience.
Mm-hmm. Well, because I have a commitment towards our audience, Luke, and I see that we've dropped about 50 people in the last 5-6 minutes of banter. Yeah, where is Jason's
Macaulay
emoji?
Mende, she's like, yeah, where's Jason's emoji? with my nose emoji.
I wouldn't. You look fine in that emoji. Oh yeah, I am a Draco Reptilian. You got it, Q-Tard Psyop. I want to get into some real news because I want the viewership to grow. So here's a story that you didn't see much in the mainstream media, Luke, that I think's kind of important. This is Monday's story.
You got to preface this. This is Monday's story.
Yes, Monday's story. Loose change stole Eric Huffschmidt's thunder. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. Eric Huffschmidt was a crazy person that I talked to on the phone personally that screamed at me nonsense for over an hour as I tried to have a rational conversation with the man. That was 13 years ago, and I haven't heard from him since. That's all I'm going to say. So back to the real news.
We're going to cover Monday's, all the week stories this week right now, covering Monday. So go ahead for Monday.
So here it is, guys. Israel launches airstrike on Hamas television station in Gaza. Now, the funny thing to me, and by the way, there's nothing really funny about it, is that when I brought this up with some other people, they said, oh, wasn't that in response? First of all, they knew nothing, Luke, about the fact that they bombed a television station. Now, are you going to tell me that everybody that was working in that TV station, from the editor like myself, or somebody that holds a camera, or even the news anchor, were terrorists? Is that what you're going to tell me? Because I'm not buying it. And when I brought up the fact that Gaza had again been bombed and people had been slaughtered and things are getting worse in that region, I was responded with, well, wasn't that in response to a Hamas attack? I said, they bombed a television station. Okay? Now, there's absolutely nothing you could tell me short of that television station was ready to launch nuclear missiles to make that justifiable, and I'm not buying it. I'm not believing in it, and you're not hearing about this in the mainstream media in the United States, and it really does bother me because Israel is put on a pedestal in this country. They are our supposed number one ally in the Middle East, and we have given them carte blanche to do whatever they want. So attacks like this one go completely unnoticed, Luke.
Yeah, you know, Khashoggi, which most likely was an asset to an intelligence agency, we hear about him all day, every day, but a news station, a TV news station being airstrike, no one's talking about it. The only person I saw talking about it, this very specific issue, was, of course, George Galloway. And this is why I saw George Galloway talking about this. He wrote a big, complex article about this that was very important. And that's why I decided to DM him. I was supposed to do an interview with him about this specific topic, but then Brexit happened. But very few people talk about Israel, talk about what's happening down in you know, Gaza and Hamas, and cover it correctly. Because one, it's a very divisive topic. It's a very hyperbolic topic, but it's a topic that a lot of people get censored for. We're not afraid of that, and that's why we're talking about this very important story that people need to be made aware of. Because if we care about Khashoggi, we got to care about all the other journalists out there, right? Our moral convictions can't be aligned for more power, like we are seeing demonstrated by the alt media, by any form of media, the mainstream media, the legacy media. A lot of times their reporting is centered around what can I share to push a certain agenda. We're not here to do that. This happened. This is an important aspect. This is what you need to see. This is what you need to understand. And this is why you're getting it here, because of your viewership and your support. Anything else you want to say about this before moving on to Tuesday's story?
No, just the fact that, you know, we have to keep in mind that this is really happening and that the Palestinian people are completely oppressed. You know, Abby Martin tweeted out this week, and I retweeted it, how there were celebrities that were raising funds for the Israeli military. People like Pharrell, I forget who some of the other celebrities were, but she got it right. She's like, this is beyond disturbing and disgusting. These people have no idea what's really going on there. And if you want the goods on what is actually taking place on the Gaza Strip, I have not seen better reporting than from Abby Martin on the ground. You know, she's not biased. You know, she's certainly not anti-Semitic. She's somebody that saw something and could not believe it was occurring, so she reported on it. So if you haven't seen that stuff, people, I can't recommend it enough. All right, let's move on to the next one, Luke.
I would say she's a little bit biased, but that's a different opinion. But we can move on to another story.
I wouldn't say in that. And listen, she's definitely left-leaning, and I definitely have my disagreements with her, but I don't know that she's biased in her Middle Eastern reporting. You know what I'm saying? You know, we very, very differently in our political views here. You know, I'm certainly not a climate change guy. She's definitely a little bit more, quote unquote, I hate using the term, but liberal than I am. But, you know, socially, I'm a liberal guy. I am. I'm one of those guys that says, hey, do what you want to do as long as you're not hurting anybody. But as soon as you hurt somebody... And that there's a government controlling every aspect of your life, overlooking you and telling you what you can and cannot do, keeping you supposedly safe, but really just controlling you in every aspect of your life. Is that what you mean, Jason? No, I was saying that, you know, every time I watch live PD, I think to myself, thank God there are police sometimes. And that's not, hey, and that's not to say that there isn't police corruption. I don't think there's a bigger proponent of police reform, of prosecuting police for police brutality, and going after police for corruption than Jason Burmis. I don't think there's a bigger guy out there. I know cops. I know people. And that is a very tough job. I don't know that anybody is actually, you know, fit for it, Luke. That's a lot of power to give a person. And I don't think anybody's going to do that job perfectly. And I just think that when we have those sorts of things, we need checks and balances. That's all. That's all, Luke. I'm not a pro-government
There's no
guy.
checks and balances in the mafia. Moving on to Tuesday's story. This one's interesting.
Isn't this a good one?
This one definitely hits all the taglines for all the keywords for our demographic.
Well, the crazy thing is, this is out of the Express, and it's titled Angela Merkel Exposed. Bizarre New World Order Conspiracy Theory Revealed. And then right underneath here is
that's a very convoluted title. Let's break that down, Jason.
I'm about to.
What does this even mean? I don't even get it.
So, what we're looking at here is an article based in a Netflix series that I had no idea existed. And in fact, I think it was released a couple of years ago. This must be season 2 or season 3 that's coming out.
What is it called? What is the Netflix series called?
It's the Top 10 Secrets and Mysteries, or yes, Top 10 Secrets and Mysteries is what.
I hate those shows.
I haven't
seen sci-fi shows. They're like do.
Yeah, but
aliens.
But you know what? Netflix has done a good job. They haven't been that way. And
have you watched this show?
No, I have not. But I've watched.
We gotta watch it. Let's watch it and give it a review. Maybe do it a review video.
I totally agree. I'm not sure this one is actually out yet, but I can tell you this, Luke, and let's play it. The 30-second tag that from the show was very professionally well done. It's not spooky music. It's actually extremely well done. So we're gonna go to it. Let's play a little clip.
Microsoft founder Bill Gates and the former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. In 1973, the German politician Helmut Schmidt was invited to the Bilderberg Conference. A year later, he became the Chancellor of Germany.
The decision has been taken right now. We think it's a wise one.
And I'm going to just pause it there because I don't want us to get a copyright. You got to be really careful.
If it's a trailer, we could show trailers.
That's true, but I'm not. I think that's just an excerpt. I don't know that that's actually a trailer. But essentially, they bring up Helmut Schmidt. They bring up Merkel. This is just a Bilderberg episode. Okay, so to me, this is definitely worth looking at. This isn't ghosts. This isn't aliens. If you look at, for instance, obviously Netflix has put Loose Change on their queue list, but I'm telling you, I've seen some really amazing stuff. For instance, Luke, let me say this. I'm gonna endorse Amazon for a moment here. Believe it or not.
How dare you! You son of a gun! You statist SOB.
Okay, so Amazon has another platform out there beyond television called Amazon Prime. All right, it put out a movie this year called "You Were Never Really Here" with a guy named Joaquin Phoenix. Obviously, everybody knows who Joaquin Phoenix is. One of my good friends, fraternity brother, a guy I lived with, is actually the assistant director on this film. He tells me last summer, Luke, when I'm at a wedding for another one of our fraternity brothers, that the film is about a vigilante who uses a ball-peen hammer to break up an elite pedophile ring run by government officials. This was...
Did you watch it?
Oh, that's why we're getting into it. So I did watch it.
What is it called?
It's called You Were Never Really Here. And this
is that the show name?
It's not a show. It's a movie. It's a full-length film.
I'm going to bootleg it so I don't give any money to Amazon.
Why am I bringing up Amazon? Amazon Productions made this. No, not because it was on Prime. They produced the movie.
You Were Never Really Here? Is that the name of it?
Yeah, it's incredible. And you know what? I'll get you a link because I do have it. First of all, it's gorgeous. Second of all, it's extremely relevant, and it's not something that I think you could even get away with on HBO. Yes, HBO will probably end up airing it, but this, HBO has done great movies in the past. For instance, they did Casino Jack on Jack Abramoff. A lot of people forgot about Jack Abramoff, the filthy lobbyist that was connected to all sorts of bad things, including 9/11, by the way, Muhammad Atta. There's some evidence of that. He walks free today. They've done those type of things. I don't think a major production house could have done a film like this. Just like I don't think a major production house. Sure, True TV had Conspiracy Theory with Jesse Ventura, but like you said, they tried to get me to go on that show after Ventura left and his son was doing it. They tried to get me to go on the 2012 show, and I just refused to say what they wanted me to say. They're like, well, tell us how the world's going to end. I'm like, the world isn't going to end.
Yeah, I remember being asked for, I think, that show or a similar show, and I was like, nah, I'm okay. But this show that you're mentioning, you were never really with us. Is that the name of it?
The movie I'm mentioning is called You Were Never Really Here. Joaquin
And
Phoenix.
you're never really here. Is that a fiction or is that like a documentary?
Not only is it a fictional film, I don't want to give too much inside baseball here because me and Tom I've tried to get him on, but apparently there's some bad blood out there between him and the actual director who was a woman. But dude,
A woman.
yeah, well, that's why this film even got a little. Dude, the thing has like 80+% on Rotten Tomatoes. It got amazing reviews. In fact, one of the reviews by The Atlantic that was starting to praise it started talking about how it got into too much "quote unquote" Pizzagate territory, and that's where it lost its way. So talking to Tom, and again, Tom is somebody I knew I was living with when I started working on Loose Change. He was one of my roommates, so he knew about the Franklin scandal. And he literally, while he got the first revision of this script, and before they cast it, they shot it, he showed me some of the emails. He sent her the Franklin scandal. So they were reading about John DeCamp's account of elite pedophilia then. And this movie, listen, audience out there, I've yet to do a full review on that. But I've definitely thought about it, and if you have not seen it, I can't tell you how important it is. There's some rough moments in it, but it's visually stunning. The story is great, the acting is great, and you won't believe they put the story to film.
Send me a link to that. Definitely look forward to seeing it. Maybe we could even do a review of that. We definitely got to do more reviews. I think that's a bigger aspect that we should concentrate on. The next story you chose was surprising to me and something I never heard about as well. And it's about the Jonestown massacre that happened.
Yeah, let's read the headline because, earlier...
Yeah, this is Wednesday's story.
Yes, this is Wednesday's story. Jonestown survivors reflect 40 years later on the mass suicide and murders that killed the only life they ever knew. The only life they ever knew. Oh, no, there is a typo there. That's why I'm reading it weird. So, earlier in the week, I saw a story about this where they talked about mass murders. Now, way back in the day, on my tail end of InfoWars, one of the reasons I left there was I wanted to do another documentary, and Jones just was not interested in doing it. And I wanted to do a documentary called Under Control, with a K, all about mind control. And one of the main focuses of that film was going to be, Luke, guess what? Jonestown. Because the evidence is clear. This story right here, the survivor that is reflecting, one of them, Luke, is a congresswoman that at the time was with a senator who was shot to death there, with 20 other survivors who were shot to death there. They were about to leave. The vast majority, folks, even though you've heard, I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid, which means that you're not buying into the lie, I'm not under mind control. It's all based on a bunch of people drinking Kool-Aid and dying at Jonestown. Well, I got news for you. Barely anybody drank the Kool-Aid. The vast majority of the 900 people who were killed were gunned down by guerrilla mercenaries that were working there. And this has all the earmarks, all of them, of a Central Intelligence Agency mind control operation. That's what Jonestown is. I am telling you the truth. Look into it yourself. Look into what the coroner had to say days after. I dug up a lot of video archives off of Vanderbilt. She said, these people were gunned down. They have bullet holes in them. If you've noticed, and I don't want to show, God forbid this gets pulled, but we're going to just scroll up. Most people that you see there are on their backs, or I'm sorry, on their bellies. That's because the gunshot wounds are on their chest. They rolled those people over before they let the media come in. And what you're seeing there, maybe that's like 35, 45, maybe 60 people. Hundreds of people died there. 300 children were killed there. And this is a story that still has not been told. And this is a story that people need to realize. Because the only reason that these people were gunned down was that when that senator landed in that helicopter, he was there for his constituents. His constituents had come to him and said, my family member went to this commune 2 years ago and I don't know what's going on. But they used to communicate with me and they no longer do. Can you please check on them? So many people went to this man. He went to go check on it. As soon as they got wind he was checking on it, they shot him to death. That's the reality. I encourage people to look into Jonestown. And Luke, this is just a really sad, sad story in our history.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at this story, I mean, I just thought everyone committed mass suicide because of the Kool-Aid. But a lot of questions raised here, and very good for you to bring this up, because I had actually no awareness of this at all.
And you know what? I want to show people the tub of the Kool-Aid right there. There it is. You know, I mean, that doesn't look much like Kool-Aid, folks, if you look at it. It looks kind of scary. And again, some people did drink it. There's actually, I know this is hard to believe, but you can listen to some of the audio of these people refusing to take it, and they're not that far gone. And then you hear the bullet fire in the background. This has been largely hidden from the public, and it's time. It's time to face that demon. Because if we can cover something like this up for 50 years, then we're going to cover something like 9/11 up for 100 years plus, maybe forever. We may never get the truth about JFK. I refuse to accept that reality. I want to know the truth, because lies don't help anybody. Lies don't help anybody. And they certainly don't help us progressing as a people. And unfortunately, tragedies like this one must be revealed so that we can move forward as a society and say never again.
And of course, they are not repeated and happen again. And the actions of the CIA and their mind control stuff, when you really start looking into it, are just absolutely terrifying to see how far they have gone, not only in their studies, but into the real life effects. There's another Netflix kind of special out there that talks about the government, the CIA testing LSD, and it's called Wormwood. If you haven't seen Wormwood, I definitely recommend watching that documentary on Netflix. It exposes just some of the sinister, utter, total propaganda and lies that the CIA, with the U.S. government, all the way to the highest branch of the U.S. presidency, just lied when it came to dosing people with LSD, testing, of course, their mind control that they were trying to achieve. And they have achieved with Sculpine in Colombia and all these other things, and that's a whole other issue and a whole other story to get into that we could talk about for hours. But let's move on to, what is this, Thursday's story about Fort Trump in Poland?
Yep. Before we get there, I do want to say, just because you were talking about Netflix and we were talking about Amazon before, what I'm holding in front of me right here, guys, is The Minds of Men by TruthStream Media. And this is available, I think, for $4.99 on Amazon to rent. Great 3-hour and 42-minute documentary on mind control. A lot of the stuff that I just discussed, some of the same doctors were involved in Jonestown that you're going to find out about in this. So please, please check this out. I can't recommend it enough.
Is this TruthStream's stuff?
Yeah, this is TruthStream's film. And like I said, Amazon, I think it's $4.99 for the digital stream.
They have it on Amazon? I'm surprised they have it on Amazon.
They have all TruthStream stuff on Amazon, believe it or not. They've been posting a lot of the stuff that you see on YouTube over on Amazon as well. I think for the last year and a half, 2 years, actually. So again, I may not like Jeff Bezos. I may not like the fact that H2Q is coming to New York. I may not like a lot of things about that platform. I do like the fact that they're allowing Aaron Dykes, Melissa Melton to have their voice, to put out that
for now.
For now, you're right. Hey,
for now.
Hey,
they banned Roosh, and they're going to ban a lot more people.
I don't disagree. I think what they've done to Roosh is wrong, and I think what they've done to other people is wrong as well. But is a Fort Trump the wrong move, Luke? For Poland.
This is Thursday's story, right?
Thursday's story right here. And Mad Dog Mattis and Polish leaders are talking about the possibility of Fort Trump inside of Poland, a permanent military base that's going to cost upwards of $2 billion. To me, obviously I chose this story to poke fun at Luke a little bit, being a Polish man, being in Poland, and now there may be an actual Fort Trump. We don't even have a Fort Trump in the United States, thank the good Lord. But also to show that the United States has permanent military bases all over the world, whether you're our ally or not. When you're not our ally, we just have a permanent military base on your border. Look what we've done with North and South Korea, for instance. South Korea, well, it's a ludicrous number of soldiers there. What's your take, Luke? Do you want to see a U.S. base in Poland?
No, because it's going to raise more tensions between NATO, the United States, and of course Russia. And already, historically, if you look at that region, Poland has been the main buffer zone that has been the playground of a lot of the world bigger geopolitical conflicts. And Poland, strategically, geographically, is in a very weak position. On one side, we have Germany. On the other side, we have Russia with no barriers between the countries, no natural kind of boundaries that prevent a full-on invasion, which have been happening all throughout recorded human history, even to the point where Poland didn't exist because it was occupied for 123 years by the by the Russian, German, and Austrian Empire. So the Polish people, historically, because of the bad blood, Polish people in general really, really do not like the Russians. Really, really do not like the Germans. And they see the United States as this kind of safe haven. But again, if we look at NATO, if we look at history, the United States, France, and England have screwed over Poland during World War II. They're using it as a kind of buffer zone. And this Fort Trump is to me, really bad news. Already, there's a lot of issues that do need to be dealt with in Polish society, and investing in military for a conflict that is not going to be good for the country, which the United States will be using as a buffer zone. It's not in the best interest of the Polish people. And if you look at the next kind of geopolitical strategic outlook of what's going to be happening geopolitically within the next kind of 100 years, it's going to be the kind of century where the U.S. hegemony, the U.S. dominance is going to be threatened and tested by Russia and China. This is that continuing, and it's only going to lead towards maybe even a more devastating situation where there's a proxy war like in Syria, but in Poland. And all of that is very possible since a lot of the experts, and even from my own analysis, this next century, it's going to be a century of the questioning of U.S. dominance and the testing of it by, of course, Russia and China. Well, so it's not going to be good.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that works right into the next story, Friday's story. U.S. could lose a war to Russia and China, report warns.
Hold on. I want to address this report before we get going into this, because I think this may be a bigger propaganda effort to mobilize more military spending and more budgets for the defense industry. I don't know if this is possible. Maybe if Russia and China come together, there would be still some kind of challenge. But again, the United States dominates the world, and China and Russia with its military spending. Even the combination of Russia and China's military does not amount to what the United States currently has and what the United States is currently spending. So I would even call a disinformation warning to this entire article myself.
Boom! And that's exactly what I was going to say. In fact, when I posted this on my personal page, that was the first thing I said is, we should just give them all of our money and do whatever they say. Because that's what this is leaning towards. Now, this is an ex-Bush official that's talking about this. I do want to say this, Luke. There is a small, tiny bit of truth about this, that we are not as dominant as we once were. And if we were to get to...
Compared to what time?
Well, I would say that even 30 years ago, we were much more militarily dominant than we are now against China or Russia.
In the 80s?
Yeah, man. China really didn't have much of a military in the 80s. It wasn't as big. Yeah, they had tanks in the streets, but they certainly didn't have the naval force they do. You know, they have a large naval force. Now, again, I think, like you do, this is mostly propaganda to say, hey, we need the military budget that's like 9 times larger than the next greatest military budget out there, Russia. At the same time, this is the one sampling of the article I will agree with. I don't think that we would be able to not sustain large losses of life in a conflict with these two nations. And that's basically it. I don't think we lose to either one of these nations at all. But
if what's going to happen, I think, is the more likely scenario is not a bigger war, but more proxy wars with smaller countries like Taiwan, like Poland, like Syria, like Iran. Those are more possible as the hegemony is threatened by Russia and China. That is, to me, the bigger, more likelihood of a scenario.
I agree. And again, I think that this is more propaganda to try to get us to open up our pockets, to agree with military spending. Again, we don't have money for education. We don't have money for health care, Luke. We don't have money for the people, but we
shouldn't have any of that money because government shouldn't be spending any of our money and stealing it and extorting it from the people to give it to somebody else, because the government is a bunch of bureaucratic criminals, and that is what it's called, a gangster mafia, taking, of course, a cut from your money. Protection racket. I don't want a protection racket. Stop stealing any of my money. Sorry, Jason, I had to.
My point is that there is never a question of a military budget. When Trump went and signed that John McCain Defense Authorization Act of $450+ billion, nobody blinked an eye. Nobody thought twice. Nobody said, "Well, that's a little outrageous. Maybe we should spend maybe $100 billion less." Nobody. Not once. Not anything. So again,
and this is why we need to shut down the government, Jason.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure, yeah, because as soon as we shut down the government and get rid of our military, I'm sure no one would invade. I'm sure nobody would take over and make
Who would invade? Who would invade the United States with how many gun owners we have in the United States?
You're right. Smart bombs don't work. Oh, you're right. Like, come on, man.
Look what's happening in frickin' Vietnam. It was impossible for the U.S. empire, for the French empire, to take down, communities of people, of armed civilians. The United States has more arms than people in this country, and if any country would invade it, they would have a very, very miserable time trying to enforce any kind of structure on the people here.
I would disagree. I would think that UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, drones would take care of a lot of those problems, especially if we didn't have a government to defend us. like
a lot of advanced weaponry couldn't handle what was happening in Vietnam because of all the people being organized and being armed. It could have advanced weaponry, but again, it's going to be it would be extremely detrimental. And it would lead to just massive destruction that would lead to casualties on both sides and wouldn't be worthwhile because whatever foreign invader would be able to gain, they would lose just as much significantly, but it would be a destruction of the overall kind of territory. It wouldn't be worth it for any country to invade the United States, even if they didn't have a government.
Well, I can't disagree more. I feel like there, unfortunately, are a lot of military powers out there that would look at us as a crown jewel if we were exposed.
Who? Mexico?
I mean, dude, if we didn't have a government of any kind.
What's going to happen? Mexico?
I don't know what you're thinking. If you think that 300 million people...
Who's going to come over and like, hey, you guys are living free. Now it's time to subjugate you with more government. Who would do it? Dude. England's going to come over with their ships again?
England already... First of all,
Queen and their tea?
England has enough power over this government, enough say in this government, they would never allow it to be overthrown. My point is that show me a nation state that doesn't have a government.
Tehran, Mexico.
It's not a nation state, Luke.
30,000 people.
It's not a nation state. It's not a nation state.
30,000.
That's great, dude. I live in a little college town. When the colleges are in town, there's about 10, 15,000 of us.
Most places don't have any government, Jason. If you look around, especially in a lot of the places in the world, government is not involved in every aspect of people's life, and a lot of people are living anarchy because government is just simply either incompetent or doesn't care or doesn't want to do something or is paid to do something and then doesn't do it. You look at a lot of places, whether it's places in Mexico, places in like Thailand or the Philippines, people are living on their own. So again, America, as we got another comment here by Macaulay Meady, who's saying America was largely under anarchy during the Western expansion, Jason.
It was.
Smiley face.
It was, and that's when me and Luke had the conversation about the origins of government in this country and electing a sheriff in those towns. And the sheriff was there to protect the people.
A local sheriff is okay. Like I don't think.
Oh, is that okay? That's kind of government, though.
Militias protecting themselves and choosing to not have a master. Like people could protect themselves, but when you start extorting people for money, when you start saying, "I'm going to put a gun to your head if you don't pay my extortion racket, I'm either going to kill you or throw you in a cage." That to me has some very complicated moral implications that a lot of people need to realize. And as soon as they realize it, we could be one step closer towards living towards more freedom, more self-responsibility, more sovereignty, and a better way of life.
Well, I just want to point out that Michelle Mead, our member out there, said, and then the sheriff caused problems. He's right. They did. They got corrupt. Absolutely. Not all of them, but many of them. And then you had the rise of gangs. Actually, at the time, other than gangs, they were called posses. But there were posses before that. Look, man.
I thought they were called governments.
Oh, yeah, I know. The bottom line is all of these institutions are run by human beings, people, okay? And we are not
That's why
perfect.
They're imperfect, and that's why they shouldn't be run by human beings. They should be run by sovereign individuals living their own life without anyone coming in there saying, "I am God. I will rule over you and tell you what to do."
So we get to Saturday's story.
Okay, let's go over Saturday and Sunday.
Because you know what? You might actually like this one. Now, I don't like everything that this guy's got to say, but this is a new elected official down in Alabama.
Let's take some phone calls. So just go over this really quickly. I'll be right back. I just got to use the restroom.
Okay, you got it. So, guys, here we go. I want to read some of this. Veteran Alabama law enforcement officer Mark Pettyway grew up in a black neighborhood called Dynamite Hill because of the Ku Klux Klan bombed so many houses there in the 1950s and 60s. Now, after becoming the first black person elected sheriff in Birmingham, he's got some new ideas, folks, and I really love it. Okay, I absolutely love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. He wants to decriminalize marijuana. Love it. He wants police officers to talk to people more. Love it. There was like one small thing that I wasn't in love with. Here it is right here. Let me just read this segment. He doesn't want to arm people in schools. I would say that that's up to the school. In a state where conservative politicians typically preach about getting tough on crime, Jefferson County's new sheriff ran and won on alternative message. He favors decriminalizing marijuana, opposing arming school employees, that's where we would disagree, supports additional jailhouse education programs to reduce recidivism, and plans for deputies to go out and talk to people more often.
If he really wanted to make a difference, he would just quit his job and make sure no one else had that position ever again.
Yeah? He should just quit his job as the sheriff, huh? As the elected sheriff that we just talked about? Yeah. Oh, we can't have a sheriff now?
I came in late, sorry.
Exactly.
Well, he's
Exactly.
an officer, court official. Ugh. Yucky. Bad words.
But again, the proof will be in the pudding, but this is the kind of thing I like. Decriminalizing marijuana, programs for people in jail so maybe they don't come back, talking to people rather than just patrolling the streets. One of the things
I don't want to talk to no cops. I don't want a cop talking to me.
Ever?
No. Like, hey, what do you want?
So you're in line. Hold on.
I got a Fifth Amendment. Don't talk to me.
Okay.
Why are you bothering me? Is there ever a point in time where you get pulled over, Jason Burmis, that you look back and you see the lights and you see an officer coming to talk to you that you're like, oh, man, this is going to be great. This is going to be awesome.
It's when I know the chief of police.
With a nice little police officer as he's pulling me over. No, it's usually, crap, what the hell does he want now? He's going to think of something and try to give me a ticket, and another road pirate stopping me, trying to extort my wealth to promote the state.
I don't even know how to answer that. Obviously, I don't like getting pulled over, and I don't like getting tickets. However, I have been pulled over on several occasions where an officer gets out of his car and starts to walk up, and then I personally know them. And they tell me to unroll the window, and I say, "Hey, Jeff," or "Hi, Doug." And they go, "Oh, you're not a sir. Hey, man, you ran through that stop sign without actually stopping. Maybe not do it so much anymore." And then they let me go. Okay.
That's called corruption, Jason. I
Let me
don't,
tell
I
you.
don't have that.
Let me tell you
I don't
another
have
little
that.
story.
I don't have that privilege
Let me
at
tell,
all.
Let me tell you another little story. This one's this is a cross-country loose change story for the people. We were just trying to work out getting that film into theaters and produced by a Hollywood company, Luke. We were in a little place called Oklahoma, doing about 95 on an 80-mile-an-hour highway. We get pulled over. This may be a surprise to some of you, but they smelt the odor of marijuana in the vehicle.
You? No.
No, I know. It's crazy stuff.
No way.
Oh, okay. Now, you got to understand, we're in an SUV that we rented, driving across the country, completely packed up. I mean, packed up. I was the one driving. So afterward, they asked me, "Hey, do you have marijuana in the car?" And I was like, "Yeah, obviously." Like,
of course, you would say yes.
Yeah. Well, listen, I've been down the
I
roads.
play the fifth.
Okay. So if I could continue my story about a guy I never met before who pulled me over when I was committing a crime, which I was. I don't love the speed laws. I don't love the marijuana laws. Whatever. I was guilty. Okay. They searched the vehicle. I had told them where the marijuana was. They put Corey and Dylan on the side of the road, pulled a second car out there, started taking our stuff out. We had brand new cell phones that we'd just gotten. This is the day of the flip phone. It was like better than a razor. They were pretty suspicious about that. I had given one of the officers a copy of the film, told them why we were going out there. They're looking at this thing. They're like, oh my God. So then we're they're there. I'm in the front seat of the car with the officer. And it's at that point while I'm sitting there talking to this guy that I realize I've got more pot in my pocket. Okay? So I forget what we were talking about. And
I wonder why.
I forget what we were talking about. But I go to the guy, I look at him and I say, "Officer, I just realized I got a little bit more marijuana in my pocket." And he's like, "Pull it out for me." I do. Now, we didn't get patted down at that point, anything like that. Believe me, I've been in situations where I've been pulled off the street and patted down for nothing, and I don't like that. Okay? I think there are limitations. I was straight up with this guy. He gave me a $0 citation. He basically gave me a citation that none of us, we had to pay nothing. We didn't go to jail. It was that he had pulled us over and that it was a speed. He could have got me on speeding. Abso-fuck-lutely. Abso-funny-lutely. Could have got me on speeding.
Absolutely. Abso-funny-lutely.
Abso-funny-lutely. Could have got me on speeding, and he spared me the ticket. So listen, I've had a lot of negative instances with law enforcement. I've had a lot of positive ones too. And I think it's by the individual. I know that's not something you want to hear. You want to paint it all with one brush. But I can't do that. I'm sorry, Luke.
White privilege. That's all I have to say, Jason.
First of all, most people, Luke, don't even think I'm a white guy. They don't. They're like, at all. They all think I'm like, I don't know, Latin American or Spanish.
¿Hablas español?
I don't. That's what I say.
I would hablas español, and I would take advantage of that situation if I was you.
All right. So let's get to Sunday's story.
All right, you white privileged chauvinist show off of being able to get away with your violations of the laws that you so much care about. Last story also is kind of related to this.
Yeah, exactly. It's perfect. You know, we didn't plan this, by the way, folks, but this one actually wasn't from this week. I just came across it this week, and I was like, is this true? And I found out, hey, this is true. And I think this is technology empowering humanity because you don't know who that officer is that's pulling you over. And, you know, I'm not an iPhone guy. I know you are, Luke. You love those Apple products. Can't get enough Tim Cook.
Well, I don't like Apple. They're a horrible corporation that has suicide nets, had no suicide nets. Now everything they're doing is robotic, but that's a whole other problem in itself. And the only reason I use iPhones is because of the video quality. The video quality is a lot better with their color codecs on there. But they're just becoming too. There's no way of like escaping this kind of corporate dominance that they have. Which, by the way, Jason, happened because of government. Apple wouldn't be as prominent as they are if it wasn't for government. Continuing on, sorry.
Yeah, you might be right about that one, but it wasn't government that bailed them out. It was actually another private corporation, Microsoft.
Well, it's not bailing them out. It's the government that put them in this position with the tax incentives and all the other money that they threw at them and all the projects that they worked with them, especially with Google Maps, to make them as powerful and as the dominant kind of corporate force that they are now that is essentially a monopoly.
Maybe today, but again, back in the Dizzle, in the late 90s, when Apple was going under, they would not have survived without Microsoft and Bill Gates. That's a fact. They plugged that money in there. And by the way, I'm not disagreeing with you that the integration of government and big tech business is dangerous, especially in the case of Apple. It is. Not only with our government, but with China's government and suppression of information there. So getting into that, there is an app, Luke, a shortcuts app, where if you're getting pulled over in your car, you can say, Siri, I'm getting pulled over, and it will instantly start recording the police from your phone. Now, obviously, you could just do it yourself.
Wait, is this an app, or is this just automatically in the
you have in the iOS in the operating system?
Siri, I'm getting pulled over.
No, you have to enable shortcuts. I actually had somebody commenting.
Siri, the government road pirates are trying to extort me for more tax revenue for the state. The mafia, that is the government, is coming after me and putting a gun to my head, telling me to pay for their bullcrap. And so it didn't work, Jason.
So once again, you actually have to enable the Shortcuts app. I had somebody in the Facebook comment section saying, I just tried it. Fake news. Doesn't work. And immediately...
We should change I'm getting pulled over to armed robbery. Can we just call getting pulled over armed robbery from now on, please? Let's just call it what it is.
You know what? I hate to harken back to live PD, but again, last night, I stayed in, wrapped up in my little blankets.
You watch too much police cop shows, Jason.
I don't watch a lot of TV at all. I don't even have cable.
Being programmed by the police state that makes you more of a lover and appreciator of the state.
Okay, so anyway... I watch this guy, he rolls through a yield sign or whatever, doesn't signal, he ends up getting pulled over. The guy who pulls him over is a military guy, and he recognizes right away the guy that he's pulled over is also a military guy. Now, he's completely cordial with the guy. I forget what state they were in. Could have been, I don't even want to guess. I'm sure some other people watched it last night.
Alabama.
It seemed like it could have been Southern. I'm not 100% sure. So he's casually talking to the guy, and the guy does not have his license on him. It's in Turkey, the country, because that's where he was stationed at. They're having a cordial conversation. All of a sudden, he asks him if there's any weapons in the car. He's like, yes, I have my AR-15 in the back. And not in the trunk, okay? Not in the trunk. Like, literally sitting amongst garbage in the back seat with a muzzle on it. This thing looked like... It did not look like the rifle. It was a shortened thing. Listen, so the cop asked him to get out of the car, never put him in cuffs, stood there, talked to him. The other cop took the gun, took the clip out, the whole nine, and they made sure it was registered to him. Everything went down fine. Nobody got a ticket for anything. I think that's okay. He broke the law.
Friend-to-friend corruption. Oh, I recognize you. You were in the same cult as I was, called the U.S. military. Oh, yeah, you get off. Pull me over. Oh, they're going to write me up a whole bunch. Obviously, I'm going to verbally express myself because we have a right to. And anyone else, of course they highlight that one. Of course they show you that
live.
One on the programming.
It's
on
live.
The YouTube, on the television.
Bro, it's live. Listen, I'm not saying there aren't taped cop shows. I'm not saying that cops aren't made to look better than they are. Again, on this program, I'm the first one to show you when a cop tasers somebody and they shouldn't have.
I bet it's live like CNN is live. CNN is never live when they say they're live.
What?
They can't just be live. Someone gets shot on the live cop show. Like
they warn you.
The cameraman gets shot.
Yeah, no, it's on there, dude.
I do the police ride along. They're unpredictable. They're crazy. They're wild.
Yeah.
I don't believe that they're live.
Oh, they're live. They're live in 8 different departments across the country, and they got like
someone want to do an investigation. There has to be like a hold on it. There has to be like a like an
delay.
Hour-long delay.
There is not. Listen, I told you last week on that show that somebody
You let
had.
me know when they're in Brooklyn. I'm going to look for those cops.
They're
I'm gonna
not.
get on
I'll
that
tell you where
TV
you can go.
show.
Yonkers. They're out in Yonkers. So you want to take like
Hey,
a
let me know when they're out in Yonkers and the streets that they're
every
on. I'm
Friday,
gonna go there. I'm
Saturday,
gonna
bro.
prove to
Get
you
out
they're
there.
not live.
Every Friday, Saturday night. I think they air it from like 8 to midnight. I don't watch the whole thing. Every once in a while I throw it on. But look, again, I know that everybody loves Luke the anarchist, the no government guy.
No, people disagree with me. You got some comments in here. Luke wants Antifa to run the country. No, I don't want Antifa to run the country.
I wouldn't even go that far. Like, I realize that you don't like those groups either. I'm just saying that not everybody. And I need to see Dylan's new documentary, Black and Blue. I know that's out there. We should get him on for that. I've talked to him in about a year. Last time I saw him was in a bar. But listen, it's an epidemic. It's an epidemic. Police brutality is an epidemic. However, in my mind, it is not just based in race, and that's my big problem with Black Lives Matter. People like Eric Garner's family that were talking about police brutality across the board, that is important. There are people that do abuse that power. We talked about, I think about a month ago, those New York City officers that were running a brothel in New York City. They were running a prostitution ring. They're police officers. They were selling cocaine out of the evidence locker. They're police officers. It's terrible.
What else is new?
No one's saying it's a rare phenomenon and it needs to be reined in. But I just do not believe that society can exist without structure. I'm sorry.
People are asking me if I'm smoking weed or crack. Again, not smoking weed or crack, smoking CBDs. Let's move on. And is that the last story?
That is the last story.
How do we set? I need to set this up. You don't need to set this up because of your white privilege and your connections with the police departments, but I need to set this up. This app thing, the shortcuts app.
Yeah, you just got to get the Shortcuts app. That's it. So you get the app called Shortcuts, and then as soon as you do that, it's in your app folder. You just turn it on, and I think it has that option.
All right, I'm going to definitely do that as soon as we get off. I think we have one more super chat. Want to take some phone calls?
Yeah. I'll put it up right now. Go ahead.
What's the phone number again?
607-542-9184. 607-542-9184.
Yeah, and again, guys, I can't listen. I can't hear what you guys are saying, so try to keep your questions short. And if it's a question for me, Jason will reiterate it as best as he can. I think we got one more super chat by Soul A. I'm going to blush reading this again. Luke, please thank your parents for me for making such a handsome and intelligent man. I bet a lot of people would disagree with you, especially in the comment section, but I appreciate you very much, Soul. Thank you so much for the endearing comment. Appreciate it very much. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I'm commenting by...
Luke is a dumber Jimmy Dore.
I love Jimmy Dore. All right, hold on. We got a call, so we're going to take it. Let's see what we got.
All right, let's do this.
You are on the air with Luke and Jason of WeAreChange. Keep in mind, Luke cannot hear you, and I don't think you're going to be able to hear him. What's your name, and what would you like to chat about?
Hey, it's Chris Bradley calling in from Fort Wayne, Indiana. I just thought I would comment on you guys always go back and forth between Luke's less government, you need a little bit of government.
Yeah.
My comment would be,
what do you think?
We're kind of damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. It's like if we have a little bit of government, it would seem that power will always aggregate to that and try to basically, the evil flock to those positions of power. But on Luke's side, being more free and letting everybody to fend for themselves, it's almost like like your side, you need a little bit of
authoritarianism
for people that don't have the ability to protect themselves, to have something. So appreciate everything you guys do. I just what do you guys think of that?
No, all right. So Luke can hear what you just said. You basically said, hey, I'm a less government guy too, but like you say, Jason, sometimes people are out of control and you need something. And you also talked about the fact that people gravitate towards positions of power that want to abuse that power. And I would agree with that statement as well, but also people that fall into powerful positions, whether they be government or not, often abuse that power as well. There's a reason that we have that saying, Luke, that absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's the thing. No one is perfect. I'm sure if you gave me enough power, I would turn into fucking Prick Simpson in a second. I didn't mean to curse there, but you know what I mean? I'm not perfect. I need to keep myself in check. I know that. It's harder the more money, the more authority, the more influence you have. And Luke, I would say this. I think we've even seen it in people that we've known personally. Certain people that have gained more power have become more corrupt. And I don't necessarily believe that that is just an institution of government. I think that that's something that's embedded in people. Go ahead, Luke.
And it's a human flaw. And even personally myself, I had to many times make a very important decision, whether it's going to be money, power, and influence, or none of that, or not as much as that. And I've made a conscious decision many times not to just strive after those things or even want more of those things or not even work as hard to push for those things, even if they would come inconsequentially, because those things do have a major effect on you that a lot of people can't handle, and they misuse once they get into their hands. So that's a great point that does need to be brought up, and that's why I always preach self-responsibility. That's why I always preach taking care of yourself and not having power structures, but having the power within yourself to be responsible for yourself, because people aren't responsible. And I think the institutions that we have around us make us less responsible, because people believe in this blind faith, in this system, in this kind of algorithm, in this unfolded, supposed organized structure, but that structure doesn't exist. It's all imperfect human beings, and the best way for me to really exist is to understand that we're all imperfect and that we all need to move in a sovereign way, not violating each other's freedom. And that's why I ultimately call for no government, and I think we'll get there by, of course, slowly limiting it. And I think slowly limiting it is a step in the right direction. But to me, I love entertaining. I love discussing this kind of concept of full responsibility, full sovereignty, no structures, institutions at all.
I'm not sure if you heard that. Did you hear that response?
Yeah, I did.
I did not hear. I'm not hearing anything else except your voice,
Jason.
Jason.
Thank you, too, for all your amazing work over the years. And, I guess, incrementally work towards limiting government and holding people to accountable, in these positions, and hopefully over time we can wake enough people up and then achieve that goal someday. So
I agree with you, man.
Take care.
Thank you so much, and that is the key. I know you didn't hear that, Luke. He did hear you, by the way, which is crazy to me that he can hear you but you can't hear him. He said, look, I hope there comes a time when these people can also be accountable. And that is the bottom line. We have to have accountability for powerful people. If we can't...
Impossible.
What's that?
Impossible.
Is it? So we're just going to give up to the Vatican? We're just going to let child molesters just hang out there? I mean,
no.
We are.
We got to go after as many of them as we can, but we have to hold them accountable. They will never hold themselves accountable.
Agreed.
And we have to do that, and we have to fight for that, and it's a struggle, and we're doing a bad job at it, and I don't see us doing a better job at it, especially with how much of an advantage they have with the censoring of the internet that we're seeing unfold right now because of that accountability that they had to deal with within just the last few years.
Well, once again, Luke, I just feel like, obviously we do live in a system where people are protected at some level, and that certain people don't seem to be able to be touched by the same laws that engross you and I, and that is a huge flaw in this system. And that does need to be addressed. We got another call coming. You hear that, Luke?
Yep.
See, it's so crazy you can hear that part. All right, we're going to go to him. You are on live with WeAreChange. What's your name? What would you like to talk about? And remember, Luke can't hear you, so I will have to surmise whatever you say for him as well. What's up?
Gotcha. Hi, Jason. Been watching you for a long time, both you and Luke. But my name's Jim. I'm from New York. And I just wanted, because you guys brought up the movie You Will Never Really Hear.
Yes.
I want to know if you guys were familiar with the guy, Robert David Steele.
Here's the deal with Robert
He
David
worked for the
Steele.
CIA?
Yeah, I totally know who you're talking about. So, Luke, this guy just brought up, he's from New York. He brought up You Were Never Really Here. I'm assuming he had seen it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought that up. Or
I have not seen the movie, but I do know of it.
Okay, so he also, and I'm going to go right back to you in a minute, he also brought up Robert David Steele. Now, I'm going to say something about Robert David Steele. A lot of people are not going to remember, okay? But Robert David Steele, in either 2008 or 2009, was the source for InfoWars and all the others that CIA and NSA seed-funded Google. That was him. Now, Robert David Steele, since then, has come up with more and more outrageous stories. Back in that, 2010, 2011 time, he was still just basically talking about government corruption, collusion with big corporations. Now he's talking about children being trafficked on Mars when he was on InfoWars, so that media outlets across the country went with that story. I still hear jokes about that they were trafficking.
Yeah, it's a little bit out there, Jason.
Yeah, not only is it a little bit out there, but it also harkens back to, this is something that actually was studied by the people of the Minds of Men, but they didn't put it in the film. Al Bielek and the Montauk Project, the Montauk Boys. That was something that was actually going to be featured in The Minds of Men. I watched some of the interviews they did, and it was pretty weird and compelling stuff. But people like Al Bielek say that they, not only were they under mind control, but they were government agents, and they've gone back in time and forward in time, and they've been to these Mars bases. And here's the thing, I've listened to David Icke for... I don't even know how long I've listened to David Icke now. Almost 15 plus years. I say he had some more outrageous stuff. Jordan Maxwell has been out there. He's never really somebody that talked about, interdimensional stuff and Anunnaki as much. But the thing is that these are, how can I say this? Amazing stories. They captivate us. And we already know that there's so much corruption and so much evil that you entertain these ideas. And all I can say is, extraordinary claims, especially when we're talking about space travel and human trafficking, they need extraordinary evidence. And I'm going to go to Luke right now. Hopefully you'll be able to hear him, and we're going to come back to you in a moment. Luke, what's your take?
Okay.
Wait, hold on. There's like a scuffle happening outside my place. Let me go check in on that really quickly, make sure everything's okay in my living situation.
Okay, yeah.
But just get through that first.
Okay, so what do you think about what I just said there, my man? Again, you had a guy in Robert David Steele that was basically talking about government corruption for the most part, talking about seed funding Google to become the Leviathan that it is, and now... it seems like he's moved from that into just making extraordinary claims. Go ahead.
So, are you talking to me?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So I didn't hear what Luke said, so I'm not sure what his comments were. Mm-hmm. But my view on Robert David Steele, so I've kind of heard the extraordinary claims about Mars and space about that, and yes, that's extraordinary and requires a lot of evidence to really entertain those ideas. But I think his most important contribution is his views on open source engineering and open source technology and open source intelligence. I think that type of those type of ideas really need to be spread across the public so they really understand what open source really means and how humanity can really benefit from that. And he wrote a book called The Open Source Everything Manifesto. I have it here in front of me. I just think his work in terms of spreading the ideas of open source intelligence is very important. He's also he's a commissioner on this International Tribunal for Natural Justice, in which a lot of testimonies are coming forward of people that have claimed to be part of whether they were child trafficked, whether they were abused. And they're giving their testimonies, and he's listening to them, and they're on the internet. You can listen to them, and I just think that the overall message of that corruption that's going on, and the plan to help redirect it with this open source initiative is very important for the public to try to grasp.
Well, let me just say this when we're talking about open source stuff, because again, I'm extremely skeptical of a Robert David Steele. I would go with someone like Bill Binney, that was an NSA.
Yeah, well, he works with Bill Binney. So he is working with Bill Binney. They work together.
Well, I got to tell you, man, I'm going to look into it. I really do appreciate the call, and I am an open source guy. I am a free information guy. I like the fact that people can share information and then build upon it. Now, does that mean I think that Robert David Steele is going to, be the bow that breaks, the child trafficking scandal? No, unfortunately, I don't. But if you follow my Twitter, I'm a big proponent of an open secret. Why am I a big proponent of them? Well, their documentary film lays out that Bryan Singer and his associates are, child abusers. Period. Amen. That's what they are. And this guy is still directing stuff in Hollywood. They're very active on Twitter. In fact, they're the ones that revealed this. And I contacted them after this because I was shocked to learn it, because obviously we'd seen a bunch of the conspiracy theories and fake news from, Neon Nettle and those other ridiculous sites. I forget what they were, but you don't see them as much anymore. But they were making the claim that both Chester of Linkin Park and the lead singer of Soundgarden and Audioslave, Chris Cornell, were murdered because they were going to go public about large child trafficking rings. Now, I don't know that to be true, but about a month and a half ago, it was revealed that both Chris Cornell and Chester were funding a documentary film project on child trafficking, and were also going to provide music. To confirm this, after I saw Open Secret publish it, I asked them if they would come on the show, or if they would do an interview with me. And I don't know whether I was speaking to Gabe Hoffman or another representative there. And they said that's really all they had to say on the matter. So I then actually tried to find, I found the person that was the director of this project on Twitter, and I messaged him to try to get any information I could from him as well, and he never responded either. So, I've got to dig a little bit deeper in there, but the bottom line is open source shared information is an empowering thing, Luke, and I think it's something that we have to encourage. Why would we want to hide things from each other? Let's build upon each other's successes.
Well, if you're a government, you want to hide things so you get rid of responsibility. And that's why we're seeing the quasi-censorship of these big tech monopolies that were empowered by government to censor voices like ours and other independent media, and also just other people going against the grain. Sorry for my absence. There was some screaming and scuffles outside. Just wanted to make sure it wasn't anyone I knew, or it wasn't connected to any of the roommates I have. But everything looks under control. But I think we're almost at 2 hours, Jason. I think we did a lot. I think let's definitely take more phone calls next week. But is there anything else you want to say to the audience out there?
No, I'm thank you so much for week in and week out supporting us. Remember, we are only supported by you guys, so please check out our Teespring store, grab a t-shirt, become a patron, become a member on this YouTube channel, share this stuff on social media, but most importantly, I always say be the change you want to see in the world. Take this information, sit down, and have a conversation with somebody that you love. A genuine one. Should we take this call or no?
Sure.
We'll take it. All right. Last caller of the evening. You are on live with Luke and Jason. Remember, Luke can't hear you. What's your name and what would you like to discuss?
Hey, Jason, Luke. My name is Ben.
How you doing, Ben?
And I'm doing well. Thank you so much for what you guys do, first off.
Well, thank you very much.
I'm a loyal listener.
Awesome, brother. So what would you like to talk about? What do you think the big topics today were?
God, there's so much. I think one of the biggest topics is the way that the internet is starting to get shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, you guys have been doing YouTube live stream. I was wondering if there's an alternate way to get the word out before you guys get shut off.
Well, I do appreciate that. So he's asking Luke, and thank you for the call. We just let you go there. He was asking Luke if there's an alternate way to get information. Now, obviously, we've been doing the once a week email, sometimes twice a week. We're trying to get that.
Proton mail is definitely recommended.
Yeah.
But also, even on our emails, people are telling me that they're not even getting the emails, that they're going to spam, that people aren't even seeing them. So that's also another thing that we never thought of, but for right now, the emails are kind of the best direct way to reach you. under our current circumstances, with us being throttled and screwed over by the algorithms and demonetization on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, which we're getting screwed over. So I guess the email would be the best one. And if you go to wearechange.org, on the right-hand top corner, you can sign up to the email list. And we send out an email once a week. We're going to try to do twice a week, but for right now, it's only once a week with all the important updates that you need to know about.
And we're also absolutely, and we're also making sure that all of the videos that we do in a week do get posted to the WeAreChange.org page. I'm seeing in the comments people are talking about BitTube, and that's a possible live streaming platform. I'm not sure if they allow live streaming, but we are also uploading to BitTube, are we not? I know we upload to BitChute. And what's the other one?
We're uploading to bit.tube. We're uploading to BitChute and DTube.
Yep.
Which is connected to, of course, the Steemit platform.
And you know, it's something we didn't cover that we should have covered, and I know it's at the tail end, but yes, with the censorship of the internet, we have them not only deplatforming people, but yes, BitChute's PayPal account was taken away from them. And again, there are no alternatives, okay? I'm sorry, you know, PayPal is the biggest venue out there, and they should be apolitical. And it is very scary because, you know, the next step is you can't use a credit card or you can't bank with us anymore. So now, you know...
Yeah. There's a great meme going around with Gaddafi after getting attacked and stabbed by the rebels saying, they said build your own bank, in relation to, of course, you know, all the news of people saying, well, just build your own other platform. Well, yeah, that Gaddafi meme pretty much spells it out for you.
Yeah, and then we're not trying to say that people shouldn't start building towards alternative platforms. We're just saying that the platforms
should.
Well, yeah, no, they absolutely should. We're just saying that the platforms that are already out there should not have the ability to censor speech just because they want to. Again, if you look at banks, it seems to me that Chase Bank loves working with criminals. You know, you look at the BCCI banking scandal back in the 80s, and they love to launder money for drug dealers, okay? Banks have no problem with criminals as long as they're banking with them, and it's on a high level. Banks only have problems when the media starts chiming against somebody, because that's the next step, man. They're going to start closing bank accounts. They're not going to let you process a Visa or an American Express card. And honestly, by deplatforming BitTube with PayPal, by not letting them use that platform, that's essentially what they've done, because that is the new universal banking system, is PayPal, Luke.
Yep, and it's only a matter of time. So thank you for sharing the time with us, that we're still here, and your support, your super chats mean the world to us. Your donations, your memberships mean the world to us. Can't thank you guys enough. Anything else you want to say, Jason?
Nope, it's a good time to close because your camera has frozen up. Remember, folks, be the change you want to see in the world. And we'll see you next week. Thank you so much.
Every Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Love you guys. Stay tuned for more.